Hey, it's Daddy Steve. Please click on the Deck Heroes icon, click on subscribe. It's 100% free. Blood in, blood out. And don't forget to click on the notifications just so you don't miss any amazing content. This is the first viewing of the impact of AI on the workforce. Very, very interesting. Can you imagine, just before we go into it, just think about the concepts of, well, firstly, a lot of jobs are going to go. A lot of jobs are going to go. But they was talking about you can have PhD level information just at your fingertips through AI, if you can get it at a fraction of the price. Those are the winners. Obviously, the downside would be the technical skills which are gone. But anyway, let's just see. Yep.
A few statements, including by OpenAI, that some people are finding concerning. We're beginning to see AI tools being launched and rolled out that are beginning to replace human workers. Here's a post from the Singularity subreddit. OpenAI CFO Sarah Fryer says the company is leaving the door open to a $2,000 a month subscription to its AI product, which would serve as a replacement to hiring humans due to its PhD level intelligence.
Each AI assistant is like another set of arms. Subscribe and expand your reach.
Now here's the article that they're referring to on Bloomberg, where the CTO of OpenAI, Sarah Fryer, said, I want the door open to everything. This is specifically referring to the $2,000 monthly subscription for its products. So we have a $20 a month, a $200 a month, and now we're discussing $2,000 a month. She's saying, if it's helping me move about the world with literally a PhD level assistant for anything that I'm doing, there are certain cases where that would make all the sense in the world. Also in the future, they're thinking about charging customers based on the value they get from using these startups' products, particularly in the enterprise settings, so targeting big businesses. Whether it be lawyers who turn to AI to have a paralegal at their fingertips, or academics who rely on it for a research breakthrough that could help offset the tremendous cost of developing AI systems. And this possible shift to a value-based pricing model for its software comes as OpenAI is nearing the launch of an AI agent that can use a computer to perform complicated tasks like booking travel or conducting research. Right, so she's saying, how might you have to finance that otherwise? Would you have to go out and hire more people? How would you think about the replacement cost to some degree? And then how do we create fair pricing for that? So to me, what that sounds like she's saying is, let's say you have an employee that costs you $8,000 a month, right? This is somebody that's working in the legal field or the research field, somebody maybe quality control of some sort. So this is somebody that's like super easily replaceable, somebody that has to somewhat complicated tasks, right? So, and in general, if a company, pays an 8,000 salary, usually people say, in order to realize the full cost of that employee, because there's other additional things like taxes and benefits and various other things that come as employee expenses. On top of that, so as a rule of thumb, you usually do something like a 20 to 40% on top of the payroll expense to kind of estimate that. So let's take the bottom range of that. Let's say 20%. So that means that the company is paying $10,000 a month to that employee, everything included, right? Now, obviously, a company like that, if it can get an AI assistant to replace that $10,000 a month salary, that human being in a chair, it would do that if the price is less than $10,000, right? So if they can get the same sort of level of work for $1,000, they would immediately rapidly shift everybody over to these AI workers, right? Because that would be a $9,000 reduction of expenses. That's a huge increase in profitability, even more so than, raising your sales by $9,000 a month, right? Because there's no cost associated with this. You're not getting taxed. It's just you reduce your expenses by $9,000. That goes straight to the bottom line. If the program cost $9,000, that would of course also motivate them to switch everybody over to the AI assistant. But they'd probably take their time with it. They wouldn't be as sort of gung-ho about doing it very, very rapidly. And so obviously this is kind of a big question that we're going to have to see kind of answered and played out in the next decade or so. First of all, what percentage of the workforce are these AI tools able to displace, to eliminate? And at what fraction of the employee cost? Do these tools work at 1% of the employee salary, 10%, 90%, right? Because those would be very different scenarios. If these AI tools are able to replace, let's say, 80% of the people that work, kind of the laptop class, or what you want to call it, the computer using class, right? So anything that an AI agent can do, let's say that's able to replace 80% of the people that are working in front of the computer, but it only saves the company 10%. Well, that transition is going to happen slow. We're going to have tons of times to, find new careers, get the training. The government might have more time to build in certain safety nets, etc. And if it's done at like 10% of the cost or 1% of cost, well, that process can happen a lot faster and really might cause a lot of issues. So I'm almost hoping that the companies that start releasing stuff like this really start charging as high as they can initially, instead of doing that whole race to the bottom to acquire users and get as many people using it as possible, because charging more and getting people on board slowly, well, at least it'll slow down the whole process, allowing us more time to react and evolve and adjust to this. Now, Sam Altman, in his conversation with Gary Tan from Y Combinator, did share some of his beliefs about what's coming next. Number one, in terms of what kind of corporate structure we might see in the future as these AI models advance. If you recall, I think he mentioned that he and some of the other founders and friends that he talks to, they have some sort of a betting pool going on when we might see the first one.
Just before we get into that, I say my partner, she's got her own business basically, and she does kind of online luxury travel journal blogs, things like that. Instead of having to pay for an editor, she puts her things through AI. It saves a ridiculous amount of money, but that's one less job for an actual person out there. Now, if you multiply that in this instance, it's exactly right. So it depends. If AI is only a fraction cheaper, it may well be slow, and obviously we're at the kind of teething stage now anyway, where we don't really know or don't really have as much trust in AI. But the more that it rolls out and the more they refine these practices, it's going to be refined and just. I'm thinking Terminator. I'm joking, but it's going to be refined, and it's going to be the stage where it's incredibly sophisticated, and there's what percentage of jobs can be just wiped out? You know what I mean? There's already going to be I'm pretty sure like myself that you would have an experience where there's already AI on the chat boxes. You know what I mean? They're all useless most of the time. They can't have the answers, but eventually they will. You know what I mean? They're going to know what questions are generally asked, and they're going to have all the answers for those questions, surely, as a minimum. And then over time, they're going to be able to think beyond those questions, to some kind of ad hoc things, as much as they are trusted to do it. You know what I mean? That's just less jobs and less jobs. So really what I'm thinking is, wow, it may well be that we have to retrain in other areas. What those areas going to be then, if the more kind of high-level sophisticated jobs are taken by AI? And nothing's going to stop this pace of progress. I'm just kind of fascinated to see how our jobs and our lives evolve, really, if we're kind of made pointless. The human element, which is no human is infallible, but most computers are going to be at that 99.99999%, right? At what stage do us humans get replaced? Anyway, let's go.
Person, billion-dollar company, meaning there's one person, a bunch of AI agents, AI assistants, various AI systems that are basically running the company. When are we going to see the first company like that reach $1 billion valuation? Take a listen.
These reasoners, we think we got there earlier this year with the O1 release. 3 is agents, ability to go off and do these longer-term tasks, maybe like multiple interactions with an environment, asking people for help when they need it, working together, all of that. Now, I think we're going to get there faster than people expect. 4 is innovators, that's like a scientist, and that's ability to go explore like a not well understood phenomena over like a long period of time and understand what's just kind of go just figure it out. And then level 5, this is the sort of slightly amorphous, like do that, but at the scale of a whole company or a whole organization or whatever. That's going to be a pretty powerful thing.
Yeah, and it feels kind of fractal, right? Like even the things you had to do to get to 2 sort of rhyme with level 5, and that you have multiple agents that then self-correct, that work together. I mean, that kind of sounds like an organization to me, just at like a very micro level. Do you think that we'll have, I mean, you famously talked about it, I think Jake talks about it, it's like you will have companies that make, billions of dollars per year and have like less than 100 employees, maybe 50, maybe 20 employees, maybe 1.
It does seem like that. I don't know what to make of that other than it's a great time to be a startup founder.
Yeah.
But it does feel like that's happening to me.
Yeah.
It's like one person plus 10,000 GPUs.
In his conversation with the New York Times at the Deal Book Summit, he does briefly talk about kind of AGI and what kind of economic disruption it's going to have on the world. And this might shine a little bit of a light onto how he believes that whole process that we just talked about, how that's going to happen. Let's take a listen.
Our intention is to treat AGI as a mile marker along the way. We have left ourselves some flexibility because we don't know what will happen. But my guess is we will hit AGI sooner than most people in the world think, and it will matter much less. And a lot of the safety concerns that we and others expressed actually don't come at the AGI moment. It's like AGI can get built, the world goes on mostly the same way, the economy moves faster, things grow faster. But then there is a long continuation from sort of what we call AGI to what we call superintelligence. And that's when...
I don't know, how's the economy going to grow faster? I've got a master's in economics. I've got a degree in psychology, a very good degree in psychology and a master's. How's the economy going to grow faster? Now, you just explained how we can go from 100 employees down to maybe 10, maybe 20, maybe 1. Right. So if there's only, instead of 100 people having the income, maybe these are kind of the high earners, basically. If you take away, say, just for the sake of argument, 100 high earners, and now you've only got the CEO, like the founder, making money, or him and maybe 1 or 2 others, then that's 97% reduction in income. And then you've got multiplier effects. So no, the economy won't do well. There's individuals who do well, but also who are they going to sell to if nobody's got any money? Because there's a massive reduction in the workforce, in the kind of the people who would buy products. They're not going to have the money for products. You know what I mean? I think there's definitely kind of... Anyway, let's go. That's my fears. Terminator. Joking.
We get worried. I mean, I remember when even in the past couple of years, you were in Washington and other places telling us that we should be nervous.
So first of all, even at the AGI moment, I think there are things to be nervous about. I expect the economic disruption to take a little longer than people think because there's a lot of inertia in society, but then to be more intense than people think. So the first couple of years, maybe not that much changes, and then maybe a lot changes in the economy. I'm not a believer in the no work. I think we'll always find things to do, and with every major technological revolution, there's a lot of job turnover. But I would bet we will have never seen it go this fast. So I think there's things like that to worry about in the relatively near term.
But not these super dangerous things.
That stuff I think is further out than a system that can you know,
Do you have any faith that the government or somebody is going to figure out how to avoid that?
I have faith that researchers will figure out how to avoid that. I mean, there are going to be some, let me caveat that a little bit. I think there's a set of technical problems that the smartest people in the world are going to work on. And, you know, I'm a little bit too optimistic by nature, but I assume that they're going to figure that out. And we're working super hard. Others are working super hard. I think there's a lot of work in front of us, but I also think we have this we have this incredible piece of science called deep learning that can help us solve these very hard problems. I assume we'll get that right. The societal issues around not just AGI, not the thing that we think will come in a few years that can do a bunch of jobs and create a lot of economic value, but like true superintelligence, the system that is not just smarter than you or smarter than me, but smarter than all of us put together, just unbelievable capability. Even if we can make that technically safe, which I assume we'll figure out, we are going to have some faith in our governments. There are going to have to be some policy issues around that. There is going to have to be global coordination to a degree.
Again, when they're talking about technically safe, we are talking about Terminator, aren't we? If it's often safe from what? So if it's just a computer program which is running a business enterprise, it's not a question of safe, is it? It's not a question of safe, unless it's somehow unsafe. Now, when I say Terminator, I'm not really talking about it creating robots and stuff, but I guess it's just saying that, but we don't know what it means by safe, basically. You know, we don't know what it means by safe, that somehow this thing could just run beyond our control, maybe, in some way. I don't even know what that means. Yeah. Anyway, let's go forward.
I assume will rise to the occasion, but seems challenging.
I'm pretty sure I made the exact same face when I was talking about this stuff. So here's him saying, there's going to be some global coordination to the degree that, you know, right? And then he takes like a beat, a pause going, well, yeah, there's going to have to be some global coordination to the level that we maybe haven't seen before. Do we bet on human beings changing and becoming more charitable and not just like looking out more for themselves and their own countries? It has to be kind of a more global cooperation. But yeah, the things that really jump out is, first of all, you know, AGI is coming probably a lot sooner than most people in the world think, and it will matter much less. In other words, as these tools get rolled out and start replacing people, maybe, you know, instead of a $10,000 salary expense plus benefits, whatever, you know, companies will be able to, on average, replace that with an $8,000 AI system. So some jobs will be replaced, technology will progress, sort of the economy will improve, right? Things will grow faster, as he says. But then there is this long, continuation from what we call AGI to what we call superintelligence. So he's saying if we're here now where we are, right, we continue along, here we hit AGI. That's kind of like the marker along the road, right? We hit AGI. This isn't the thing that everyone should be worried about. There's some concerns there, but it's not going to be dramatically world-altering, world-shifting in that precise instant. However, as we continue to true superintelligence, ASI, right, this long continuous stretch as everything improves, this might be kind of the concerning part, right? Because once we hit AGI, in that moment in time, because remember, there's inertia, people, you know, get up and go to jobs every day, people.
Just a second, I had to do this some research. AGI means artificial general intelligence. And according to Google, that refers to the hypothetical intelligence of a machine that possesses the ability to understand or learn any intellectual task that a human being can.
Haven't learned how to use all the AI systems yet. We haven't learned how to implement them into the businesses. So, I mean, let's say 1% of the workforce is sort of replaced due to AI at that point. It might be a little bit more, a little bit less, who knows? But the point, it's some percentage. Over this continuous stretch, that goes to 100% or some 99.999 whatever, right? We're going to be at close to a 100% replacement of the workforce. Now we're mainly talking about, you know, jobs that are done from the computer. If the sort of the robotic revolution catches up, it's also going to be a lot of the manual jobs. And this is the part that he's saying is going to be more intense than people are realizing, right? That's this part where he's saying, yeah, there's going to be economic disruption, but that's going to take longer than people think. There's inertia in society, you know, again, it'll take a while to switch everything over, but once that snowball gets rolling and starts picking up speed, it's going to be a lot more intense than people think. And so the question he's asked is, do you believe in the government's effort to sort of figure this stuff out? And I kind of like how he answers that question. He doesn't say, yeah, of course the government's going to figure out everything. They're so smart and amazing. But he does say he believes in researchers figuring it out, in smart people that study this problem and come up with various solutions are the ones that hopefully we'll be listening to, not the politicians. Or I think it's even more accurate to say that I hope the politicians themselves also rely on the smart researchers that are doing this work instead of kind of relying on their own intelligence and their own understanding of what's happening next. Very few of our politicians and politicians around the world, they seem to have a tech background. Here in the US, most of the lawmakers seem to have a legal background, some historians in there. I think this is the time that it's crucial that we get smart people into politics, that we have people that understand tech, kind of the classic stereotype of a politician that's used to pandering to people, that's very well versed in doublespeak, that says one thing in front of the public, then says something completely different in front of the donors and the backers. So I do think we will figure it out if we listen to the right people, if we get the right people in power running stuff. If Sam Altman is correct and there's a little bit of a sort of inertia built in, and this is not going to be a rapid sort of displacement of people, then that's good news. That means we have more time to sort of prepare and put some of these sort of safety nets.
Just a second. He used a lot of words. I just kind of to summarize. I think we'll be okay as long as we've got truth and honesty in politics. Whew. We're all doomed.
Place, of course, the most obvious one that people are talking about is some sort of UBI, right? So a basic payment to everybody, basically. The other really kind of a big sort of portion of this to understand is that, and this is from Sam Altman's blog where he talked about Moore's Law for everything, where I think he does a very good job of explaining what the problem is. Now, you might agree with him, you may disagree with him. I'm not saying that his thinking is the best thinking or anything else like that, but he took a time, alongside it looks like Ilya Sutskever was on there, Dario Amodei. They kind of put together this blog post kind of detailing what might happen. And there's a couple interesting parts in there that will help us think about how to navigate these upcoming challenges. One of the things that he's saying is that, broadly speaking, there are two paths to affording good life. One is an individual acquires more money, which makes that person wealthier, right? So if somebody gives you $10,000, you can buy more stuff. Hooray. The other one is prices fall, which makes everyone wealthier. So if indeed we're able to use AI to drive down the cost of goods, right? Because human labor is sort of the biggest cost to producing a lot of this stuff. So as AI displaces people, they get replaced with AI systems, right? That means that more people will need some sort of a social safety nets or some other jobs to pay for basic foods and services. Currently, just paying everybody not to work is probably not feasible. I'm sure some people disagree with that, but I feel like it's not on the cards right now. And this is kind of the important point that he makes here. So Moore's Law for everything should be the rallying cry of a generation whose members can't afford what they want. It sounds utopian, but it's something technology can deliver, and in some cases already has. Imagine a world where for decades and decades, everything, right? So housing, education, food, clothing, etc., becomes half as expensive every 2 years, right? So as AI and robots.
Yeah, but listen, again, I've got a master's in economics. I think, but it doesn't take the fact that, listen, if you haven't got an income, okay, so you're going to distribute income centrally. So the AI, we talk about communism, aren't we? We need to face it. So, or are we? You know what I mean? So, okay, not necessarily. So you got these handful of people who run industry via AI bots. They make all the money. Then somehow you have a method of taxing them, these ultra powerful, like mega powerful people, and somehow the governments have influence over taxing them. And then they distribute that wealth to everybody else, as I say, going towards communism again, and some kind of system. And then hopefully with the efficiency from AI, then everybody can afford something. I mean, afford what though? What I'm thinking is at the moment we've got a capitalist system where price is meant to reflect scarcity, the scarcity of a resource, you know what I mean? And they've got premium products and things like that, and it's all kind of relative to income. But what happens in this situation where, as I say, you've got a handful of people making all the money and the money's just redistributed? And what do we spend our time doing? There's going to be mass unemployment, surely, guaranteed. So there will be some earners, and say there was like this. I guess it's just the existing sort form of benefits, but en masse. Just thinking out loud. Anyway, let's go forward.
Do more and more of the work, and human labor kind of drops to zero, the cost value of it. Yes, those people get displaced, they're out of jobs, but if that translates into everything becoming half as expensive every 2 years, right? So the house might be $500,000 now, 2 years later it's $250,000 to build a brand new one. I mean, right, using robotic labor, AI, etc. 2 years later it's $125,000, 2 years later it's $75,000, right? Eventually it's just the cost of the raw materials, and even those might be decreasing. We're seeing a lot of things out of Google DeepMind. There are known projects discovering new materials, potentially better construction materials. We might be able to see that in the next few decades. So this isn't science fiction, or maybe it's a little bit of science fiction, but it's certainly something that we could see very, very soon. So if we think about that, if it takes $50,000 for a family, let's say, to survive somewhere, I mean, obviously that depends where you're living, but let's say that's $50,000 is that average number, where we probably can't afford just to pay everybody right now that money to just live. But what if it's $50,000 this year, but 2026 years later, it costs $25,000 for a family to survive for a year. By 2028, it's $12,000. I'm rounding down a little bit just to make the numbers easier, right? 2030, it's $6,000. 2032, it's $3,000. All of a sudden, UBI seems a lot more possible, a lot more affordable, a lot more feasible. Right now in the United States, for example, we pay on average per capita, is how much we spend on public welfare. In 2021, that was, let's say, $2,600. So in our little simulation that we did here, right, that happens, let's call it in the year 2033, right, where the amount that we're currently spending per person on welfare to just support, some percentage of the population, assuming this kind of progression, it would be cheaper to pay that much money to every single person. And this is, I think, an important point to understand, is that if indeed something like this does happen, this idea of Moore's Law for everything, if massive automation, if technological advances can have this large of an impact on prices to produce basic goods and services, right? So food, clothing, shelter, healthcare, education, whatever. And this is an if-then statement that I'm making, right? If something's true, then this might be true. If this Moore's Law for everything is true, then UBI seems like it might just work. And this is where we got to be careful to not miss this opportunity. If indeed it's available to us, we got to make sure we don't miss it, because a lot of people have a hard time kind of thinking from first principles, right? And their thinking goes something like this: money equals, food for family. We get to continue to survive. Job equals money. Right? So job gives me money, so money is food for family, so job is good. And then if AI takes job, then AI is bad. And this is what we're seeing. People are saying, don't use AI in their job. We're seeing this with the Hollywood strikes, right? People are like, don't use AI to write scripts, don't use AI to do acting, etc. And maybe with movies it's a little bit different, right? So that might not be the best scenario, but certainly with a lot of other stuff, if we're able to use it more in healthcare, for example, to reduce the costs for the patients, right? That's a lot more sort of valuable. But this is kind of the big point here, is that a lot of people think that AI is here to take their jobs, therefore their money, therefore the food for the family, without really understanding that there could be an alternative. Really what you want at the end of the day isn't a job, right? You want the food for the family, right? The basic necessities of survival met. Then that would mean that the AI is going to provide the sort of the basic necessities that we all need to survive, and then people can still work, they can still pursue businesses, they can do everything that they're doing now, sort of on top of that, to have the luxuries and everything else that they want. And this is why I think the researchers do have a chance to figure out if this is possible, because they can actually look and see, like, is Moore's law for everything, is that a possibility? Is that true? Is it as strong as, for example, here, everything becoming half as expensive every 2 years, right? Because if that's the case, well, that might be a really good way forward for everybody. For a politician, if everyone's screaming, hey, we want to protect our jobs, we want jobs, they might be a lot more comfortable making decisions that protect jobs, making their constituents happy in the short term. So there's going to be more and more talk over the next decade about this stuff. As people are yelling and screaming about what to do, keep this idea in mind. Can AI and robots and automation, can they drive this extreme drop in prices of goods and services? If yes, then for the first time in human history, we have some solutions available to us that, like Sam Altman says, it sounds utopian, right? This idea that everyone can have their basic necessities met without, them contributing. They only have to work for the luxuries or for all the other stuff that they might want. So if this is real, then we got to make sure, number one, we don't prevent it from happening because we want to keep our jobs, number one. And number two, if the prices to manufacture something, to provide a service drop, we want to make sure that that's passed on to the consumer, right? So that difference isn't just pocketed by the corporations. They can still make their profit margins. But, if you cut your expenses by 99% by firing your entire human staff, then, your prices of the goods and services that you're selling, they should drop. So if this is true and we can kind of execute it properly, then life can be pretty good, or a lot more chill for a lot more people. We're not going to have blood in the streets and all that. If this is not true and automation somehow does not drive down the cost of goods and services at this extreme rate, well, then we have some tough discussions and tough decisions to make ahead. With that said, my name is Wes Roth, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.
Very interesting, very interesting. So to no point, I'm not getting worried about it, but I think the potential for it to... Listen, there's going to be some impact on jobs. There's going to be impact on jobs. You got to think about at what stage would it actually drive down prices? It drive down costs and you increase profits, of course. What stage would it necessarily drive down prices, though? There's going to be a lot of pain there first. You know what I mean? There's going to be a lot of people on welfare, surely, first. And they, businesses aren't known for one to kind of reduce profit margin. When's the last time you kind of, apart from like sale time, and they artificially inflate a price to bring it down? The host was trying to say that it's more likely with the reduction in costs, say there'll be less need to increase prices. Anyway, watch this space. We don't know what's going to happen. Hopefully it's good, not necessarily bad. I think there will be that encroachment of this into industry, but as soon as they're above a certain threshold, it could be kind of wholesale changes in terms of a lot of jobs go obsolete. So watch this space. But the evolution of the economy and an industry is inevitable and cannot be resisted. And remember the days when we had coal fires, and it still is in some parts of the world? Gone now. Do you know when we travel horseback? Gone now. And you can't stop the pace of progress. But it'll be very interesting how far this one goes. Anyway, please like, subscribe. Then Steve and I'm out.